There is a ton of data that you can see about your ads in your AdWords account. It's overwhelming, honestly, how much data you can see. And that's one of the beauties of pay-per-click advertising and Google AdWords in particular, because you can see so much data and you can base your decisions and you can optimize your account to make better performance for your ads, for your business, based upon that data. But obviously, you actually have to pull some actionable insights from that data. You can't just get caught up in looking at it and never taking action upon it. So I'm going to give you a walkthrough here of some of the different options, different data, different metrics that you can add to your reports in AdWords to see lots of different things about your campaigns. So go up here to the columns area. I'm going to be on the campaigns tab right now, but you could go to different tabs to see this information for different for keywords, ad groups, ads, etc. We're going to go to modify columns. And you can see here a whole list of different categories of metrics, and then each category of metrics has some different options over here. So let's just kind of go through these real quickly, and I'll explain what most of them mean. So obviously campaign type and campaign subtype, that tells you what type of campaign you have and what subtype. And you can see that these are already added to the report over here. Typically, once you start advertising, you won't need these because you'll know what your campaigns are, so I'm just going to remove those for now. Labels I talk about in a separate lecture, so check that out to learn what labels do. Campaign ID, I don't think you'll ever need the campaign ID. That's just something kind of internal for Google. Bid strategy type and bid strategy. Those are both relevant if you have some kind of bid strategy other than bidding manually, setting manual max CPCs. So if you set up some of Google's automated bidding strategies, you might want that column that column there just to indicate what you are using for each column or for each campaign or ad group. So that's under attributes. Then we've got performance, and you're going to want a number of these performance attributes or performance metrics in your reports. Obviously, clicks tells you how many clicks your campaign has gotten. Impressions tells you how many impressions it has. CTR stands for click-through rate. That tells you what your click-through rate is, which is your clicks divided by your impressions. Average CPC is the average cost per click you're paying per click, the average amount you're paying per click. Average CPM stands for cost per 1,000 impressions, and that's really only relevant in a few instances. You can bid on the display network per 1,000 impressions if you want. I don't generally recommend it, so typically you won't need this metric here. Cost tells you how much you have spent, and average position tells you what your average position is. Total cost is a little bit different than it's pretty much the same thing as cost in most instances. Now, invalid clicks and invalid click rate, that can be interesting. Obviously, there are robots and just different things out there that can click on your ads, but they're not actual people clicking on your ads with an intent to do anything good on your website. So Google uses very advanced filters to find that traffic, and it will tell you here how many of those clicks they have found and what your click rate is. Now, these are clicks that you are not paying for. The fact that they're in this column means that they're not included in your other columns of your total clicks or your cost, but it is helpful to be aware of just how many Google is catching. Engagements and engagement rate and average cost per engagement, that's more for YouTube campaigns. Same thing for views, view rate, average cost per view, average cost. Those are all things typically more for the YouTube side of things. You can see down here interactions, interaction rate, invalid interactions. Google is trying to move away from the terminology click, because there are more ways to interact with their ads than clicking, because you have YouTube views and just different things that aren't necessarily a click. So interaction rate is the same thing as click-through rate in most instances. Interactions is typically the same thing as number of clicks. So if you see those in your reports, that's just what it means. And then video played to these percentage marks, that's for YouTube. Tells you what amount of your video or what length of your video someone has watched. Conversions, you'll also want probably some of these conversion options in your reports. So it's pretty straightforward. Conversions is number of conversions. It's cost per conversion. Conversion rate, which is conversions divided by clicks. All conversions is if you have some conversions that you're not counting in your normal conversion categories, which typically you won't need to do that, but those would show up in the all conversions area. View through conversions is a somewhat misleading metric. It tells you, theoretically, it tells you how many conversions you had after someone saw your ad but didn't click on the ad. And typically, you'll most often see that for display and remarketing. I don't really trust that that metric to be fully accurate, and honestly, neither does Google. But it can give you a sense of maybe how many, or a level of engagement that your display ads are driving, in addition to just people clicking on them and converting after clicking. You got cost per all conversions, you have all conversion rate, all conversion value divided by cost. Just a bunch of different options here. And then you also have similar options for converted clicks. And remember, you can have multiple conversions per click. So someone could place multiple orders, or someone could click once on your ad and then fill out a form and also call you, which would be 2 conversions. But if you only want to count 1 conversion per person, you can look at the converted clicks column, and there's only going to be one converted click per click in that column. You can see you got a bunch of different options there. Under attribution, got a couple interesting things here. This can give you a sense for the funnel that your ads are providing. So, for example, someone could click on an ad yesterday, or today. Say they click on an ad today, they visit your website, and then tomorrow they come back, they search something, they click on a separate ad, and then they convert. Well, you can see here per campaign or per ad group how many click-assisted conversions there were. So if somebody clicked on an ad from one campaign and then converted from another campaign. Same thing for impression-assisted conversions, and so forth. Social metrics isn't a big deal. This is for Google+, which Google+ is largely dead. So you probably don't need to look at any of these metrics there. Call details, this is if you are using call extensions with Google forwarding numbers, and it will tell you how many impressions your phone number is receiving, how many phone calls Google is tracking to that forwarding number, what your phone through rate is, how much you're paying for that, your average cost per call, so forth. Competitive metrics, I talk about this in my lecture about how to see how much traffic you are losing, and so check that out. Performance active view, this is for the display network, and active view is basically Google's way of saying that they think that the data they're showing is for ads that truly were seen by a person, not just displayed on a web page and not seen by someone's eyeballs, but someone actually saw these. And there's some different metrics about those ads there. Google Analytics, you'll see this option if you link your Google Analytics account with AdWords, which I definitely recommend that you do, and I've given instructions on how to do that in a separate lecture. And these are the 4 metrics that come over from Google Analytics. So bounce rate is a percentage of people who reach your website and bounce off or leave your website before going to another page. So it's a measure of just how relevant people think your website is to them. Pages per session is how many pages someone is visiting or viewing during a session, and then average session duration is how many seconds, how long they spend on your website on average. And then percent of new sessions tells you kind of what percent of new people you're receiving compared to people coming back to your website. So that can all be interesting data. You can also see that in Google Analytics, but sometimes it's helpful to see that within AdWords itself. Reach metrics, this is only for YouTube and the display network, but this gives you a better sense of how many actual people you're reaching through those networks, because remember, someone can see an impression or see an ad many times in a day. So you might have 1 million impressions, but maybe you only reached 250,000 people. And unique cookies is roughly equivalent with number of people. It's not totally accurate because people have multiple devices and there's some other things that skew the data. But if you saw that you have 100,000 cookies from a campaign, then you can guess you've got somewhere around 100,000 people actually saw those ads. Change history can be very helpful if you're trying to figure out why your performance has changed and if it's due to actual changes you made to the account. So you can add these columns to your reports and see a count of how many changes you made during a certain time range or date range. Gmail metrics, this is only for Google-sponsored promotion campaigns, which is a special type of campaign where you send ads to people in their Gmail inbox, and these are some data points regarding those types of campaigns that falls under a display campaign. YouTube earned actions, this is obviously for YouTube campaigns, and it's some different earned data points. So if your ad shows and then you get some additional earned media based upon that, or earned likes or shares or whatnot, that will show up here. And then custom columns is a very helpful option where you can actually pick a specific metric. So for example, you could pick a conversion. Let's go with converted clicks, and then you can segment that a little bit, and we could actually go with a conversion name, and you could pick a specific type of conversion, like contact form, and we could call that contact form. There we go. And save that and apply that, and then you can see down here it'll tell you how many of that specific conversion action you got within a given date range, and you can do custom columns for a number of different metrics. I think you can have a total of 5 custom columns at once, so that can be very helpful. So anyway, that's a really quick overview of a lot of the options that you can see in your account, and these options change a little bit when you go to the ad group level or the ads level, just depending upon what data provides, or what data Google provides for these different views. But as you can see, there's a lot of options, a lot of stuff you can see, and definitely take advantage of what you feel is relevant to you in terms of optimizing your account and making it perform better.